Welcome to Lodge with Leaders, the podcast where we explore what it truly takes to lead, thrive, and create lasting impact. I'm Adaeze Iloeje-Udeogalanya, a TEDx speaker, a leadership strategist, and the founder of African Women in STEM. While many episodes feature conversations with innovators, trailblazers, and leaders from around the world, today's episode is a solo reflection, a space for us to slow down and explore a leadership, visibility, or career insight together. These episodes are designed to help you learn, unlearn, and walk away with grounded perspective and practical takeaways you can apply in real life. So if you're ready to lead with intention, if you're ready to amplify your voice, and if you're ready to grow with clarity over time, you are in the right place. Let's get into today's episode. If you were gone for a week, what stops? Work getting done or decisions getting made? When things are unclear, do you wait for instructions or do you set the direction? By the time you reach senior leadership, many of the metrics that determine whether or not you advance are not spelled out explicitly. No one hands you a rubric. No one tells you the real criteria by which you're being measured, but they expect you to meet all expectations. And once you understand this, it frees you up to stop focusing too heavily on performance and start seeing how advancement actually happens. Now, if you've been listening to this series for the last week or two, you already know that at a certain point in your career, hard work stops being a differentiator. And this point happens way earlier than we think. You now know that proximity shapes opportunity. You now know that advocacy, not output, determines success. Well, a friend of mine was telling me that they've done everything they can. And they're at a point in their career where they know that the only way they're going to get to the next level is if someone taps them on the shoulder. Advocacy, not your output, determines how successful you're going to be. Decision makers are not looking at your task list. They're looking out for something much harder to measure. You're being judged by the things that are not revealed to you in your performance reviews. The interesting thing at this stage in our careers, especially for high performers, for women in STEM that are high performers, is that your performance reviews are not a place for you to get great feedback that can help you move forward, because what you're going to hear for the most part is that you're doing well, keep doing what you're doing. And that doesn't serve you in any way. Most of us women in STEM that are high performers are trained to respond. You wait for clarity. You wait for the assignment to be defined. You wait to have all the facts and all the figures. You wait to minimize and mitigate most of the risks around whatever it is that you're doing. But the reality is that you should be the one framing the problem. You should be the one setting the boundaries. You should be the one who is deciding how you're even going to move forward in the midst of all these unknowns. At this point, you should focus less on execution and more on context. I once heard a story about two individuals that were faced with the same problem. There was an issue with something that they were doing for a client. It was technically an emergency. These two people are at the same level at work, so it's not like there was any difference in their hierarchy. But one of them went away and immediately started working on the problem because it was very important to them that they solve this problem for the client. The other person realized that they needed to save face with the client and focus on that first. So in the end, the issue was resolved. The client only acknowledged the individual that reached out and gave them the time of day. Interestingly enough, the individual did actually get the work done. But that's the person that the client acknowledged, because so far as the client is concerned, this is the person that reached out to me when there was this crisis and walked me through everything that was going on. And you can guess who was promoted down the line. So why am I telling you this? Because it's important that you pay attention to what is truly at stake. In this story, the client cared more about the attention they received. Even though it was necessary that the problem was fixed, it was not the number one priority in the hierarchy of important things. So that's why it's very important at this stage in your career to align your efforts with impact. To ask, why does this matter? Why is what I'm doing right now matter? Why is it important that I do it? How does this connect to the larger strategy? Because even when you do what you believe to be the right thing, it could still not count in your favor. And this is where a lot of very capable women in STEM get tripped up. Because you're not doing anything wrong in the traditional sense. You're doing what you were rewarded for earlier in your career and for most of your career. You move quickly, solve the problem, deliver the results. The issue is that at senior levels, when you step into leadership or get into senior leadership, speed and execution alone are no longer the signal that people are looking for, people that are making decisions about who gets to advance. What they're really watching for is how you interpret the situation before you act. They're paying attention to whether you understand the stakes and not just the task. When things are ambiguous, they're not asking, can she fix this? What they're asking is, does she really understand what matters here? And these are very different questions. Senior leaders are evaluated on their ability to read the room, not just run the play. To understand what's urgent versus what's important. To recognize when the technical problem isn't the real problem at all. That is why performance reviews start to feel disconnected from promotion outcomes. You go through your review, you obviously exceeded expectation, you're a high performer, it is clear, you're told you're doing great, keep doing what you're doing, but nothing happens. You don't advance. The outcome you were expecting isn't the outcome that you get. Because the criteria has shifted, no one told you, and no one is willing to step up and tell you. And you're being assessed just not on what you're optimizing for. One of the hardest adjustments at this stage is realizing that context setting carries more weight than execution. Realizing that it is your job to shape the narrative around the problem, and that matters more than being the first one to solve it. It is the reality, and it's one of the reasons why people who are less qualified than you are being promoted before you, because they get this. This doesn't mean that, doing the work or executing at high levels don't matter anymore. It's just that it's assumed at this level, and it's not what differentiates you from the other person and what will move you forward in your career. What differentiates leaders at this level is their ability to frame the problems in a way that helps other people make better decisions. What does that look like? Especially for high performers, we have the tendency to want to do everything ourselves and believe that nobody can do it as well as we can. So we find that we are in the weeds. For people that are very supportive of their team, they're not necessarily doing things because they don't believe their team can do well, but because they believe that they should be in there with the team helping them. All of a sudden, you're doing the work you're focused more on doing. But I need you to realize that it's less about what you do and more about what you're able to influence, how you're able to help people make better decisions and work better, how you can identify the right people for the right job at the right time, how you can know what you should focus on first and what you should focus on next. You should be able to understand the political, relational, and reputational implications of anything that you're doing at this stage. You should also be able to protect trust while resolving the issue. The client felt that they could trust the person who reached out to them. And from their perspective, the person that was hard at work solving the problem just didn't show up. These are signals that never show up in a task tracker. These are signals that are never talked about or discussed in your performance reviews. Many women in STEM are operating in environments where being precise, being correct, being technically sound has always been the safest strategy. You learn that early. Credibility came from getting it right and literally getting it right almost all the time. Credibility comes from not making mistakes, from proving that you know your stuff. So when you reach a point where it's no longer about being precise, being correct, being technically strong, these things are not enough, it can feel disorienting. And that's okay. Because I want you to understand that it has nothing to do with how well you do your work. You have not lost your edge. But the system has changed, and the system has changed what it rewards. So this is not a setback. This is a signal that how you've been operating needs to evolve. The key thing here is not just recognizing it, but being strategic in your response. The good news is that now that you understand how decision makers actually evaluate readiness for advancement for your next level, you can stop guessing and start positioning yourself for your next promotion. Some leaders like to play the wait and see game, so they wait and see how things unfold. But others design their next move deliberately. If you're in the second group, this is the kind of work I do with my private clients. If you want to find out more, you can fill out the application. The application to work with me is in the show notes. Until next time, bye. If you have learned something today or feel inspired by this episode, I would love and appreciate it if you leave a review on the Launch Your Leaders podcast. This will help others just like you know that this show is for them too. Find and connect with me and reach out to me in the DMs. I love chatting with you. I am Adaeze Iloeje-Udeogalanya on LinkedIn. Until next time, lead boldly, create impact, and expand your influence.